The crowd shouts with one voice, "God wills it." All eyes turn to the raised hand, to the wooden cross someone holds above the heads. The cold bites cheeks, breath steams in the air, but there is fire in the heart. The promise is simple. If you set out, if you lift the cross onto your shoulder and go east, your sins will be forgiven. No one yet knows that in a few months, these same people will be drinking dirty water from a strap, cutting fodder for the horses into quarters and dividing it like bread. No one knows that at night someone will climb a rope onto the walls of Antioch, and the gates that seemed unconquerable will open because of the treachery of a single guard. This is the beginning of the road. In this episode, I will give you a brief of the whole expedition, and then I'll take you to the plain near Dorylaeum, where steppe cavalry meets the heavy lances of the west. You'll see faith meet hunger, ambition clash with dust, and how one decision can save thousands of lives. It began in Clermont, when the Pope said it was time to go, help the Christians in the east and reclaim Jerusalem. In the crowd were knights and peasants, the rich and the poor, pilgrims who had never before gone farther than the next town. This mixture of hope and fear struck like a bell. Someone grabbed a knife and cut a cross from his cloak. Someone nailed a cross to a staff. Someone else swore he would set out that very day. But the first wave, the hottest one, turned into a wave of chaos. The People's Crusade marched faster than the hosts of the magnates. There was no discipline or supplies, no plan, only big words and even bigger bellies to fill. What for some was a pious walk became for others looting and a flight from hunger. When the first serious test came, the crowd fell apart. The man who yesterday sang a song about Jerusalem lost his sandal in the mud and thought only of where to find water. Remember this image, because it is a warning. Zeal alone is not enough. You need order, guides, and a chain of people who know what they're doing. The real army moved later. Not one stream, but several armored rivers. Normans, Franks, Lotharingians, Provençals. Each banner had its own leaders, habits, and old grudges. Even so, all agreed to go together. Constantinople was waiting, an empire that didn't fully trust them, but needed their swords. The city glittered with roofs and domes. Beyond its walls began another land, another language, other customs. There, for the first time, they felt what a road means on which logistics matter as much as prayer. You don't win because you shout louder at the start. You win if you reach the finish with water, oats, and boots that still hold together. After the fall of Nicaea, won more by bargain and pressure than by battering ram, they moved on. Summer in Anatolia forgave no mistakes. The land rolled with hills, the wind carried dust, and the sun heated metal faster than the heart. To keep from choking on their own march, the columns split. Bohemond and Robert of Normandy went ahead. Behind them at some distance followed Godfrey and Raymond. It wasn't recklessness, it was calculation. Less dust, easier water, a better chance that local stores would suffice for 2 passages. But separation has a price. Scouts tell truth shorter than an arrow. The enemy will look for the moment when one part stands alone. Silhouettes of riders appeared on the ridges, quiet as vultures circling the track. They watched, measured distance, counted cover, studied the rhythm. Where heavy cavalry loved to smash in close order, the steppe, trained for generations, offered its answer. Don't get caught. Shoot, break away, return, slash at the flanks until the foe drops from thirst and exhaustion. On the morning of July 1st, Bohemond came out of the narrow valleys onto a wide plain by water. It looked like a gift. A stream, a few trees, a strip of damp ground. He had the camp thrown up at once. Infantry set the wagons, stretched awnings, pulled up buckets. The cavalry was still thinking of the morning's march when the dust on the horizon thickened and moved at a speed that didn't belong to a peaceful landscape. It wasn't wind, it was an army. The enemy's light horse slid down the gentle ridges like a wave. First came the short cries, then the buzzing of bowstrings and the hiss of many arrows at once, as if a sack of iron had been torn open and poured across the shields. Bohemond and Robert of Normandy did what comes naturally to heavy horse. They settled deeper in the saddle, gathered their lances, and pushed forward the men in iron to scatter the enemy's silk and feathers. But this was not that dance. The foe veered away at the last moment, turned, shot, vanished, returned from another side. After several such tides, it was clear that blind collisions cost horses and men, and brought nothing but dust in the teeth. Then Bohemond made the day's decision. If the enemy wants to circle like a jackal, give him a bone he can't bite through. Dismount. Knights who felt safest on horseback stood on the ground, took the shield like a door, and the spear like a palisade. A short order ran down the line faster than echo. Around the wagons rose a living trench. There was no time for fine words. Only a wall of shields, a tight line of spearheads, and a barricade of people behind whom stood the horses, the pilgrims, the stores, and that single trickle of water that saved throats. Women ran with buckets from the stream. Someone strapped a shoulder with a belt. Another pressed down a horse that tried to bolt. Dust and fear hung in the air, and still the wall did not crack. Light cavalry slashed the flanks, shot like hail, searched for gaps. Sometimes they bogged down in the marshy edge. Sometimes a breach opened and was plugged by a reserve held like a last breath. It was not a pretty tourney picture, only grinding teeth, sweat, and dust. But it made sense. Minutes turned to hours. The scouts sent earlier were to find the rear column and call it to haste. A question hung over the camp like a vulture. When will our own arrive? In the heat, even faith needs water. One man counted the arrows in his quiver. A knight counted breaths to the next charge and the next hold. Bohemond had no illusions it would be short. He knew that if he could hold until the hills raised dust, not of the enemy but of friends, the weight of the morning would finally mean something. The scene matters for another reason. It shows that Western knights can beat the steppe if, for an hour, they agree to think like infantry. Shield, spear, calm, and patience. At last, someone on the rampart saw a movement that didn't match the battle's earlier picture. The dust that rose was thick and went like a wedge. There was a trumpet high and a banner that didn't belong to the foe. Godfrey came with his men faster than the camp could say his name. He hit the ring that had been tightening all morning. It didn't end the battle, but it unstuck it. The enemy had to wheel part of his force to take that charge, and the pressure on the living trench eased. Godfrey wasn't hunting an honorable duel. He was breaking the enemy's rhythm. It was about breath, about the half-step separating a mob from a maneuver. When more banners reached the second ridge, among them Raymond's, the picture began to change. Now they could do what an hour earlier would have been suicide. Bohemond ordered those who had held the line to mount. The rest stayed in cover so the wagons wouldn't be devoured in revenge. The charge was not one glorious straight line rolling across the world like thunder. It was a movement synchronized with that wedge on the horizon. Frankish heavy horse struck when the enemy's horses were tired and his quivers lighter. They smashed into men who had been whirling since dawn. On the left, a Provençal detachment found the enemy commander's tent and set it on fire, burning the backdrop so the actor had no stage to return to. Flame did its work. Panic is a weapon too. When a command point dissolves, a wave that looked like a line spreads and never contracts into a hiss again. What had been a trap all morning became a road of flight. The open plain, where there was nowhere to hide, suddenly lay like an empty bowl. The Seljuks began to break. Some tried to save their last arrows. Others loosed blind volleys. But heavy cavalry finally got its moment. Not because it is inherently better, but because it used its strengths in the right second. When the steppe slows, iron catches up. Then words end and dust says only that something snapped. If you remember one lesson from this battle, let it be this. You can win by stepping back from what seems your strength, and using it only when the ground under the enemy softens. Dorylaeum was not the end of the expedition. It was a bridge. After it, the army looked again at the map and saw this wasn't a fairy tale of shining armor. but a hard road where water, grain, and people must be watched every day. After Dorylaeum, they marched on toward Antioch, whose walls were so thick that even breath bounced off them like rock. And there, when winter came, when the stink of the siege spread around the city and the grass in the camp had long since been pulled up, one guard, a speck in history, turned out to be a doorway. With a rope, a whisper, and the courage of those who stepped into the dark, the gate opened from within. Victories don't always come with a battering ram. Sometimes a man opens them by deciding he will no longer stand on that side of the wall. If you want to know where this leads, you must go further. Beyond Antioch still waits Jerusalem. It isn't as imagined in Clermont. There are no golden streets and easy answers, only dust, disease, and people who never return. There are words that carry through the ages about guilt and absolution, about the cross borne by some in piety, others in hope, and others by habit. On this road you will see politics push into prayer, rivals who stand shoulder to shoulder today and quarrel about precedence tomorrow. You will also see how often wars are decided not on walls but in heads, and how sometimes a single betrayal opens a gate as wide as 10 rams. Today's episode was to show you in miniature what this is all about. At the beginning there was a promise and a shout, then chaos, which taught humility, then the march, where logistics proved as important as prayer, and finally, a battle in which heavy cavalry won, not because it charged at once, but because it could stand still, clench its teeth, and turn a lance into a palisade. That is how the whole story will go. Movement and stillness, hunger and hope, wall and ruse, ropes and gates, and above all, people who are heroes one day and the next simply try to live through another day. When we return to these scenes later, you will already know the rhythm. You know the hiss of arrows over a shield and the look of dust that hides the horizon. You know what those in the living trench feel as they wait for the signal. Only then will you better understand Antioch and what happens there at night. You will also see how different are those who speak a single slogan while following different dreams. Some want a holy city, others land, still others a name someone will write in a chronicle. Each will have to answer why he risks everything. We will return to that question because it is like a thorn in a sandal. Without an answer, you make a few steps, and then it hurts. And this story will not stop at a few steps. It goes all the way to Jerusalem. Heat, dust, and a long, long road east. We left the knights after the first hard victory with one thought in mind: go on, whatever happens. Now begins the march that turns people into shadow and shadow into steel. From now on, there are no colorful banners, only hunger, fear, and choices that split a conscience. Winter wind in Anatolia is unlike ours. It is dry, and at night it freezes your breath in your throat. The columns move slowly. Some lead horses, others carry children. Armor creaks, straps snap. When there is no rye, they grind acorns and grass to put something against the ache in the stomach. At the rear, they cut each other for a handful of grain. At the front, a trap waits at every step. Light horse circles like mosquitoes, ride up, shoot, pull away. By day, the sun pulls strength from the neck. By night, damp soaks into the cloak. And suddenly, like a mirage in the plains, it rises. Antioch, walls that remember the ancients, towers stabbing the clouds, churches hidden by stone, and thousands of people below the walls with no road back. A siege begins with silence. Everyone learns a new rhythm. Daytime in a dugout, night at the palisade, forays for wood, for water, for everything. When salt runs out for the first time, food turns slick and Swedish, and wounds fester faster. When the horses are gone, bones are taken from the ashes. Someone brings word. Relief is coming to the city. Someone else says relief is coming for us. Everyone looks toward the river and toward the hills, because hope always travels by two roads. Bolts and words rain from the wall. Below, men lash floating bridges from beams and barrels to cut movement on the other side. Each night has a different scream. Even if you keep watch and hold your spear correctly, sleep can get into a man when it is quietest. And when sleep enters, the enemy enters too. A month passes like this, then another, then the desertions start. First those who came because everyone else did, then those who secretly expected quick loot. Those who have nowhere to return to stay. So do those who stubbornly believe. Since we set out, we must arrive. Winter slowly loosens, but uncertainty does not melt in the camp. A rumor circles that a great army is coming from the east. Another that someone in the city will betray. Neither can be checked, so you wait and grit your teeth. On the day when the earth smells of the first warmth and the mud begins to dry, something happens that only happens in sieges. A single man changes the current. There is a guard who has had enough of tyrants. There is a conversation that began with signals, hands from the wall. There is a ladder the night cannot see, and a handful bold enough to go where darkness has the advantage. And suddenly before dawn, a roar. Not a cry of attack, but a cry at a discovery. The gate opened from inside. There is nothing louder than the silence after a gate falls. In that silence, everyone runs where he feels he must. Some to the towers, others to chapels, still others to the storehouses, because food is a prize greater than gold. Antioch cracks, not like an eggshell but like an old tree. It holds for a long time, then a split goes through everything. At dawn, smoke mixes with prayer. In the afternoon, shields and shards of jars lie in the squares. In the evening, processions of gratitude pass through the city. And exactly when many think it's over, dust slides into the valley. Dust that is not ours. From afar it's not clear, but it isn't one banner. It is a carpet of hides and arrows laid in a half circle. Those who stand in the city are suddenly besieged. The situation flips like a coin. We have walls, but they have time. We have booty, they have fields. The second stage begins. Harder, because convictions crack inside the head. Hunger walks back into houses. Water is so thin, it almost has no smell. Boots are sliced into straps and boiled. The singer sings lower. The man who lifts hearts must now lift his own. Then there appears what people live on when all else is gone. A sign. Not everyone believes in it. Not everyone wants to. But the story runs like fire through dry grass. In the ruins of a church, under the floor, someone finds a spear. It does not matter whether it is that spear. What matters is what it does to people when it is brought into the light and when, in the dark, it glows like a line beyond which fear ends. From this moment a spark appears in soldiers' eyes that neither food nor orders can give. A consent appears, to go out, even if it will be the last outing. At dawn they gather at the gate. The sun is still low. The air is cold. Words are short. They go out in order, unit after unit, like wave after wave. A plain lies before them. Far off, the enemy's wings raise dust. At first everything is simple. Formation, step, song. Later it changes. Pressure from the left, arrows from the right, shadows running faster than horses. But the line holds. Something holds stronger than iron. Shared memory of hunger. They go forward without looking aside until the ground underfoot changes. Harder, drier. Somewhere in the haze, someone is first to burst into the enemy camp. Then there is no formation, only movement. Streams of men fleeing, sheets of canvas, ropes ripped apart. And among it all, 1, 2, 3 banners that do not slow down. When the dust settles, there is silence. This time not after a gate, but after a field. Bows lie scattered, kettles abandoned, leather saddles cut, and that breath people take together, as if at last remembering how to do it. A runner goes to the city with news that we live. Another places a hand on the earth and says it is warm. Victory has no single face. Sometimes it looks like a full pot. Sometimes like the return of someone already mourned. The road does not end in Antioch. It only begins. All who survived now know the price of one wall and one gate, and that bigger walls lie ahead. They set out again, this time differently. There are no more talks of returning, only one talk. Water, food, how not to die before we arrive. Behind them remains a city that went from feeder to empty. Before them, a furnace called summer. Each day reaps strength like a scythe, evenly, without questions. People take shelter in the shadows of shrubs, horses in the shadows of people. At noon no one speaks. You speak in the evening, when the air grows thicker and the smell of the fire is like home. Days arrange themselves like prayer. Morning, coiling ropes. Afternoon, looking for shade. Evening, a short counsel. Night, short dreams. And suddenly, after many such prayers, it emerges, the thing spoken of from the beginning and harder to believe in. Jerusalem. Not like other towns, not only walls and towers, a city into which childhood, songs, and hopes had been pressed. They look from afar as you look at a man who long was a legend and now stands within arm's reach. But the legend has a moat and walls. It does not read promises. Ladders must be found. Wood must be found. Water must be found. Everything is must, and everything is not enough. Under the walls the city makes other sounds. Every noise has an echo, even steps, even a whisper. On baked earth they build towers of dry wood, though all know dry burns better. On the hills the camp spreads, though all know everyone can see the camp. They try to break through, to tunnel, to surprise, and the walls stand. Then comes the lesson in humility. Those who only knew how to charge learn patience. Those who only held spears learn the oar. Wood must be floated down river from distant forests. Those who only knew how to command learn to listen to men who know the terrain, the wind, and the night. One night our towers burn. It smells of leather and vinegar, the coatings used to resist fire, but fire finds a way. Simple things matter most in the medieval world: water, shade, meat, silence. When these are missing, a person becomes very real. You see it on faces. Some turn thinner, others harder. Some disappear from morning to morning. Others appear at every hardest task. Some who yesterday were someone stand quietly and pass the buckets. Some who yesterday were nobody can shout in a way that moves hundreds. That too is Jerusalem, a mirror where everyone sees what he is. At last comes a day when all aligns: wind, direction, wood, hide, rope, people. They spend the night curled to the ground to catch the first pale band of dawn. When it appears, the towers move as if alive. Archers and footmen cram inside. Below, everyone pushes. Bolts whistle on the left. On the right, a roar. One tower wedges into the ditch, another reaches the wall. The bridge drops crooked. There's a heartbeat of hesitation. Then a man jumps, not because he is a hero, but because he can't wait 1 second more. Others follow. Suddenly the narrow wall is jammed, and everything said for months stops mattering. What matters is the grip of a hand, a knee striking metal, the weight of a shield, dried blood under a nail that doesn't stop the fingers seizing a stone. This is when great stories shrink to short breaths. When the gates finally crack from within, a wide current floods the streets. Voices mix and single words are lost. Some weep without knowing why. Others fall silent without reason. Some kneel, others search for water. From up close, great moments look ordinary, dirty, sweaty, broken. Later memory makes the picture. Now the picture is still being drawn. The dome, the steps, the stone smoothed by many hands, and light pouring like honey over everything that was in darkness moments before. But this is not a story about an ending. It is a story about a price. After every city taken comes a bill, always. Some say it is in gold, others say in blood, usually both. After the taking, each person faces a question: who am I when no one sees? What do I do when I can do anything? There is no choir then and no witness, only a person, and the answer he gives himself. That hour stays longer than laurels and scars. You can forget roads and stone. The road inside, you can't. When a new order is set in the city, another kind of march begins. Not in armor, but on paper. Who rules? Who judges? Who keeps the keys? How to live with those who are on the other side. How to save what can be saved and close what cannot be reopened. There is no glory here, only work. But it belongs to the story because every expedition that reaches its goal turns into everyday life, and that is exactly where it is easiest to get lost. So, in this part of our tale, We pause a minute and take stock. What do we know? Hope can keep a man alive, but without water it fails. Walls can be taken from outside and within, but the hardest wall is in the head when you think it can't be done. The strongest things happen quietly. A talk at a gate, passing a small sign, the moment when someone says, "I'll go first," and changes everyone's plan for the day. And every victory ends with a question. Why? If we don't know why, everything runs out through our fingers like sand on the wind. Before us is the next stage. The road goes on. The Crusades were never one battle or one city. They were a braid of ambition and faith, politics and hunger, big words and small deeds. Soon we'll go deeper into that braid, the different crosses carried by different people, kings and footmen, knights and townsmen, those who write letters and those who carry them. We'll see how one victory breeds two quarrels, how one peace forges two new conflicts, and how what was supposed to unite can divide when someone stops listening and only speaks. Before we go on, return once more to the wall and the plain. This image will be needed. When we speak of treaties and oaths, remember they grow from simple scenes. A person, another face, breath, a decision. Every map, even the largest, is made of tiny steps. We learn those steps throughout the march. With them we go into the next hour, and we go, past conquest and euphoria, toward the hardest thing, holding what you took without losing yourself. History doesn't end at the fallen gate. It begins the day after. There will begin the next part, in a tent, under the banner's shade, over a plan that must reconcile people with different tongues, memories, and one goal. Then, through small victories and small wounds, toward the bends where we'll ask again, what matters more, the road or the finish? That will be our course. Now let us put down the swords and look at hands, the ones that raised ladders and the ones that passed the cup. In this story both are needed. Only together do they carry the story forward. It is dawn. Damp hangs over the camp. Smoke from fires stings the eyes, and in the hands of those whom chronicles rarely name, tools gleam. Hammers, chisels, needles, quills, measures. A moment ago, they were the backdrop. Now they will pull the story forward. We start with the road because every crusade is not only a blow at a wall, but thousands of steps between villages, depots, and quays. Someone counts sacks of grain. Someone else keeps the forge from dying. Someone makes a list of what vanished in the night. 2 ropes, 3 arrows, 1 horse. Boring? Perhaps for a night. For an army it is oxygen. Without it there is no swing of a single ram. You see lines of wagons, wheels bound with hide so they don't split on stones. On one wagon a chest of nails, in another skins of resin. Further, beams that yesterday were part of a barn and tomorrow will be the frame of a siege tower. The carpenters don't joust with lances in the open field. Their weapon is tempo. They set tripods for straining ropes. They measure the range to the wall with a cord knotted every cubit. They curse when wind shifts, because then fire goes where it shouldn't. Who runs this? Not a king, not a prince. A short man with a clenched jaw everyone calls master. He can glance at a beam and say, it will split on the 3rd bolt from a crossbow. He can set 50 men to a rhythm so a machine rises from nothing. Yesterday he built a bridge over a river. Today he builds a bridge onto a wall. And tomorrow? Tomorrow he may die from a fall off a ramp. He won't be in the chronicles. He will be everywhere in the victory. Meanwhile, a chaplain writes the names of the dead. The line is simple. Name, village, device on the shield. He records marriages, too, quickly, by a fire with a sword belt for a ring. No one knows if they'll live to see Jerusalem. They do know that if they survive, the memory of those words will be the dearest thing in their chest. Now, the field kitchen. A pot big as a bath. Someone pours whole grain in. No time to mill. Someone else chops onions with a knife that yesterday cut leather straps. A joke appears, the first laugh of the day. Even under walls, laughter gets its 5 minutes. It keeps you upright when muscle is failing. Who cares for the horses? The young. They brush coats, pick stones from hooves, dry girths over the fire. They learn to read hoof prints in mud like letters. They know a horse loses its ears first, not literally, but focus. The ears start to work before the legs give out. So they act early. Water, salt, short leads. Thanks to them, the cavalry even reaches the wall. Before we strike, look at the quill. Someone writes, "To you, brother, we live. Grain is dear. The younger ones are sick. But morale holds because a ship has come." The letter passes 3 hands. A scribe, a courier, a sailor. Each risks differently. The scribe his fingers, the courier his throat, the sailor everything. Only when news returns do we learn Europe breathes with the same tempo as the camp. A common heartbeat. Without it, the army becomes a crowd. Now the arrow makers. They don't make miracles. They make repeatability. 20 goose feathers, 20 shafts, 20 heads. Glue in the bucket. No time for perfection. Time for series. Someone rubs a thin coat of fat on the heads, so they turn in meat and are harder to pull. Brutal? Yes. Effective? Also. War is arithmetic. Outcome outweighs elegance. Look at the women in the camp. One sews gloves because hands split on rope. Another washes wounds with water steeped with herbs bought from a Greek at the port. A third watches children. Why children? Because life gives no pause. The wagon is a home. No one left a milk baby in a village where tomorrow a patrol might take hens and flour. Their presence isn't a whim, it's the cost of continuity. Now the currency that does not rust, information. A scout returns. More round shields on the wall today than yesterday, fewer spears. What does it mean? Rotation or readiness for close fight? Who hears this? 4 people. The commander, the master of engines, the chaplain, and the cook. The cook? Yes, he knows tomorrow he must add salt and cut water, so stomachs don't churn during the assault. Every mouthful is part of the plan. And the plan is simple to say, hard to do. First, approach the wall. Then, turn trees to walls. Then, turn walls to bridges. Then, turn bridges to a crack in the wall. Then, when it splits, turn a crowd into a current. Flow fast or die. What decides? Small things. Whether the rope holds then, whether the leather dries too much on the tower, whether the fire goes with the wind and not against it. See a man with a clay pot. He walks slowly because inside is sand and ash. He, not a knight, will smother the fire dropping from the wall. In the last moment he will cover the flame, choke it, and save the beams. Will he live? No one knows. But he clears the way for those who climb. Now the path to the Greeks. Not all Westerners know their language, but all know their depots. There are ropes, yokes, pitch, sometimes beams ready-made, sometimes maps. Who negotiates? A quiet man with a translator who smiles when others bare teeth. He knows when Nicaea clotted with traffic and why Antioch fell only when a wicket opened. In his notebook are not slogans about glory, but names of quartermasters and their habits. What works on them? A deadline, not a sermon. Now money. Awkward topic, but unavoidable. No engines without pay. No pay without a purse. No purse without tax or patrons. Sometimes priests in the West say, give, and you will gain remission. Sometimes a merchant says, I'll give, but I want docking rights and trade. Both lay sacks. Thanks to them, a ship sails. Someone says, business, not faith. True, both true and false. Without those sacks, hunger does more harm than enemy arrows. Now the medics. No silver tools, sharp knives, needles, sinew thread. They wash hands in vinegar because water is foul. They cut rot, lay a dressing of honey. They blow on embers to heat iron red because then blood yields. The air smells of burned flesh. Someone faints, someone returns. Afterward, the medic sits under a wagon, leans his head against the wheel, closes his eyes. 2 minutes of silence and another cry. Back to the engines. Imagine 5 great beams lashed into one spine. Cross ribs, cloth and hides over the ribs, a nose of iron, a ram called the ram. Will it break the wall? Maybe. Even if it doesn't, men on the wall will break. The rhythm of blows shakes breath, spoils aim, steals courage. Thump, thump, thump. Water break. Thump, thump, thump. A rhythm with no melody that still gets into the head. We go to the wall, but pause in a thinner place, the mess tent. Who eats first? Not the knight. First the stretcher bearers, then sappers, then scouts. The knight comes last because he knows his strength without theirs is paper. Someone whines the soup is thin. Someone else drops a handful of barley from a private sack. That's how trust is built. Enemies don't see it. They feel it when the assault lasts 2 hours longer than they guessed. Morale, what feeds it? Not only hope, facts. A contingent from the north arrived. The moon sets at such hour. Yesterday we went 10 cubits closer to the wall than a week ago. Such numbers are bread for the head. Rumors kill faster than plague. Facts save faster than a medic. A commander who can't speak in numbers is a good orator once. Then he hears silence. Before we raise the ladders again, listen to one man. He has hands like cleavers. His name is Otto, but all call him Crane because he lifts more than his frame suggests. He says, "Yesterday I laid 3 planks. Today I'll lay 5. I don't know if I'll enter the city, but I know that 5th plank will save someone's life. That is the secret of sieges. You work for someone else's moment of glory. If you know that, you win even if you're not first through." Now the enemy. He isn't stupid. He counts, sows, sharpens. He has men of fire and water. He has a quill that writes to someone far away. Remember this. Pride is the enemy's best ally. Make a ladder 1 cubit short and they'll smile first. Stretch a leather screen too thin and they'll smile second. Don't let them smile a 3rd time. Before the assault there is something else. Quiet trade. Where the wall meets the river, people meet who prefer silver to honor. Is it treachery? To some, yes. To others, a shortcut that saves lives. History knows wickets opened by a single coin, and coins that were traps. Hence a double scout and a double guard. Trust and control at once. Hour of the assault. Who goes first? Not the longest pedigree, the one who can count to 3 under fire. 1, step, 2, step, 3, jump, then a breath under a plank, then an elbow higher. That rhythm is the art of survival. And one more thing, don't shout. A shout gives away position. Breath is a signal. Those behind hear it. They know you live. That is enough. We climb. Muscles burn. Hands slip on rope. Baskets of stones fall from above. Pitch pours from the side. What do the sappers do? Strike iron on iron to drown the sound of saws. When a beam in the wall trembles, someone whispers, 2 more blows. Then a crack. Not legendary thunder, but the sound of an old fence breaking at a farm. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows. It is the sound of passage. We rush into the gap. No grand gestures, no courtly poses. Fighting at 2 steps. Knee on stone, elbow on helm, a cry short as a hiccup. And then, as always, someone thinks of water. That's why the stretcher bearers stand close. Why the pot stands closer than the standard. Why jars of vinegar are open. When the order right finally comes, someone smiles at last, though his mouth is full of dust. Is it over? No. A city is not a wall. It's streets, smells, cellars, places where a man can vanish or rise again. Who leads? People who earned their bread here before we came. Guides from the quay, the miller at the end of the track, the boy who carries water. Their map is sharper than parchment. They know where the paving is loose, where a grate doesn't close all the way, where the wall guards can't see a turn. You pay for it. It pays off. Still, let's return to camp, because victory without a base sours quickly. After the gate falls, someone counts horses, someone writes down who's missing, someone rations water so it covers both pursuit and the wounded. Someone runs to the shore and waves a cloth, the signal for ships to enter. Someone goes to the chaplain, make a list of those who can go back toward the sea. A ship waits there. Those who have done their part will return. Not everyone must go to Jerusalem. There's no shame in that truth. There is sense. Now consequences. When one city falls, another bars its gates tighter. But merchants open coffers wider. Why? Fear mixes with greed. After a loss in the field, the enemy's advisors talk fortifications. After a loss in the walls, They talk counterstroke at sea. Do you see? The hands we speak of don't stop at combing ladders. They already plan new knots in ropes, new patterns for barrels, new routes for wagons from camp to port. Before we close this part, 3 images. First, night after the assault. Silence doesn't exist. You hear panting, iron falling from shoulders, one man crying. No one asks why, everyone knows. Second, dawn after that night. The first spark in the forge. The smith watches iron like a sunrise, all from the beginning again. Third, a letter home. We entered. Not like the tales say, slower, but we entered. If you can, send tow, needles, and salt. We need them more than silver. Why does this matter? Because this tale isn't about one man speaking under a gate. It's about 1,000 throats exhaling together to pull a rope. About 1,000 decisions with no posters and real effects. Whoever understands that understands the Crusades deeper than the one who only knows a list of rulers. And one more thing, time. The clock ticks differently when you wait under a wall, when you sprint as a courier between villages, when you stand in a harbor and count masts. You learn a time that isn't yours. In return, you get a rhythm larger than you. Not everyone likes it, but whoever syncs with it, history pays him interest. In the next minutes, we go further. You'll see how this back office turned setbacks into stubbornness at Antioch, how hunger lost to routine, how a letter from the key changed decisions in Europe by men who never saw those walls and yet influenced them. You'll see new brotherhoods arise, not from myth but from the need for order, some for hospitals, some for the roads, some for discipline. And you will see why Jerusalem's gate didn't open by itself. It opened because thousands of hands had already learned to act as one. Now breathe. Look again at the hands, those that lift, sew, count, write, dress wounds, and those that pass a cup to someone back from the wall. Without them, there is no story. With them, even defeat can be turned into a road. That is the point of this part. To see a backbone that doesn't shine in armor, but carries it on. We move on. Before us towns that heard of our machines and ports that don't yet know how many ships they must take. Before us, negotiations where silver and faith sit at one table and don't argue because there's no time. Before us, diseases that will try to fight for the enemy, and remedies that were here before big words were invented. Before us, people who, when the moment comes, will again count to 3. Clench their teeth, and jump. In that simplicity lies everything. This war needs fewer fireworks and more repeatable motions. We already know where those motions are forged, in hands resting a minute before grabbing the rope again. That will be our rhythm for the next episodes. The rhythm of work, hunger, supply, contracts, and small wins unseen from the tower that still push the tower a cubit forward. If you want to understand great battles, learn to like those little cubits. They build the road under the feet of those who climb the walls and bend history. After battles and assaults comes the work no one wants, and without which victory crumbles like stale bread. People, water, horses, stores must be counted. We must know who commands and who executes. Yesterday, everyone ran toward the gate. Today, everyone asks where the gate to order is. From here we go on, step by step, to the end of this expedition. First, leadership. In Jerusalem, you don't choose a king with fanfare. First comes the question whether there should be a king at all. Some say yes, the city needs one head. Others say no, this is a holy place, not a throne to adorn. A middle path appears, defender of the Holy Sepulchre, not a king. The title sounds humble, the burden is royal. Gates must be garrisoned, watches set, stores prepared, water secured. A sign must rise on the tower that tells all around. This was not a raid, not a short excursion. It is a decision to stay. Second is the street that doesn't end at the walls but runs to the ports. Without the sea, there is no air. We need docks, ships, alliances with people who live by wind and salt water. Merchants from the sea towns enter the game. They don't want great words. They want contracts. In exchange for timber, rope, iron, and men, they ask for staple rights, free trade, bits of key, warehouses. Whoever has an eye for detail sees the future in these lines. When the ports are ours, The road from Europe will be short and certain, not long and risky. For now it is different. Between Jerusalem and the sea stand foreign walls. Each such town is a knot in a rope. It must be untied or cut. Before the sea comes a new enemy from the south. News of Jerusalem's fall reached those who had long called themselves its masters, and the decision was simple: this cannot stand. So, before fresh paint dries on shields, a field battle many will remember as a swift lesson begins. On one side, men worn by siege but grimly set. On the other, a fresh, confident, larger army. Wings of dust flicker on the horizon. One voice says, "After such a road we cannot." Another counts coldly. "We hold morale, will, and a terrain we can use." The line is drawn, a short prayer, a short order, a simple front. Heavy cavalry chooses the moment when the opponent begins to shift formations. The blow lands on point. It lasts shorter than a siege, weighs just as much. When the dust settles, it's clear the city won't fall back that day. Important, because it buys time for the third step. Third, the choice of who stays and who returns. Many have fulfilled their vow. For them, the goal was to arrive, to see, to pray, and go home. Some are sick. Some have lost everything and have no strength for more. Others feel their role begins now. The truth is simple. Whoever stays must have a place to sleep, food to eat, and someone to rely on in the night. Thus, the first kernels of care brotherhoods appear. At first, they are not great orders, but groups who know you need a hospice by the road, a candle by the bed, a basin of water by the door, a checklist of simple rules: whom we feed, who goes first, how we keep order. Fail to do it at once and chaos returns. Do it, and people breathe easier and trust this is more than a camp. Fourth, the line along the coast. Ports must be taken like beads on a string. Each has a different nature. One lives by trade, negotiates readily, and prefers treaty to assault. Another knows the assault will come sooner or later and prefers to heat pitch and stack stones. One will yield the gate for privileges. Another only when it sees a neighbor fall and decides it is better to be inside the new order than outside. For the army, it is unheroic but necessary work. Castle by castle, port by port. Each success shortens the road. Each city opens magazines and shortens the queue of ships. These are not scenes for grand paintings, but they are the scenes that feed. Fifth, the north. There, where those fleeing the western storm found shelter, new arrangements rise, new alliances, new barriers. One city looks north and west, another east. One counts on a neighbor's help, another on a neighbor's envy. In such a setting, new states are woven from thin threads: hilltop castles, valleys with water, tracks that can be blocked with one gate. Whoever can read a map from above at last sees the sense of things that looked accidental from below. That castle stands not because the place is pretty, but because from its tower you see 3 roads at once. With 3 roads you have choice. With one, you have trouble. Meanwhile, the faces at the top change. One departs, eaten by toil. Another puts aside a crown to carry a shield. A third returns to Europe for strength and tells there that the sea is longer than he remembered, and the wind friend and foe the same day. Those who stay learn the language of everyday life. They begin to understand land cannot be held long by sword alone. You need people to till, roads to carry grain, a market to trade it for iron, and water that ties all things together. With that, the sword is lighter. Without it, the sword weighs like an anvil. Here the matter of trust and old oaths returns. Words were sworn along the way. Arrangements with Eastern rulers who asked for help and promised help. Words each side understood differently. Some say they fulfilled all. After all, the main goal was achieved. Others hold it was to be otherwise, returned, shared. Pride lies in the background, and sometimes real fear, sometimes memories of old hurts. This chapter has no neat endings, only talks that end half smile, half threat. Still no great rupture comes. Why? Everyone knows enemies watch outside. If they see a crack, they will drive a wedge into it. Sixth, pilgrims. They begin to flow by land and sea. For them it is not war or politics, but days of finding lodging, buying a jar of water, not getting lost at a crossroads, and not being cheated at the bread scale. For the new rulers, it is a huge challenge and a huge chance. If a pilgrim returns alive and grateful, he will tell others it can be done and is worth it. If he returns angry, he will tell them to stay home. From this come the first rules of the road, guard points, places with clean water, patrols at forks. It doesn't sound heroic. It works. Every good return is another sack of flour, another chest of nails, another person who says, "I'll give." There is meaning there. 7th, learning from mistakes. The first wave of victories teaches humility. Where water was neglected, disease returns. Where a small garrison was ignored, raids return. Where nobody watched small agreements, big grievances grow. There is no path but repair and return to basics. Guard the well, guard the gate, the ledger of what went out and what must come in. From the outside it looks like bureaucracy. From inside it looks like life. Only when these lists work can you think of more. 8th, people from afar who want a share and a seal. Some bring know-how, engines, fortification craft, better crossbows, another sort of barding. Others bring customs to be sometimes accepted, sometimes set aside. Some say, "We know better." Others say, "Teach us. You already know how to live in this climate." From these talks, a new mixture forms. It doesn't always taste good. In time, it is clear which ingredients hold and which fall apart. 9th, the northern marches where each castle is an eye and each bridge a throat. There are no great cities. There is a great stake. Whoever holds the passes holds exchange. Whoever owns a hill fort sees 3 valleys at once. That's why a fight for one keep can last months. Not because the stone is that hard, but because the stone stands in the right place. No drums and flags here. Patience. Preparing a dawn raid. A sharp cut at noon. A pullback that makes the foe think he won. While he missed the point, the road is ours already. Meanwhile, bonds are born unseen on maps. One commander trusts another because that one shared his last water. One craftsman trusts another because he didn't steal his men in the night. One scribe trusts another because together they wrote hard things without ornament, knowing someone will read them one day and need truth, not legend. Such bonds hold more than walls. When crisis comes, they are the bridge. 10th, the return of matters hanging since the start. Who holds which place, whom people obey, how to divide power without waking instant quarrel. One thing is sure, the void hates vacuum. If you do not fill it with order, chaos flows in. So hard appointments come, this castle to him, this town to him, this road under common hand. The sensible know you cannot please all, and they know it must be done now, not tomorrow, because tomorrow is always too late. In this phase much is said of law, not the grand kind in great books, but the practical kind. What weight is honest, what cup is truly one cup, how to count days of service, how to pace steps along the wall so a soldier knows when he returns to the fire and when he may drink. Law in such conditions is an instruction manual for everyday life. Not everyone likes manuals. Without them, everything grinds and stops. And we cannot stop. 11th, memory. People are tired. They want to know why. The chaplain speaks, not now of far promises, but of yesterday's sick man who lived because someone gave him water and someone else didn't spill it, though he himself was thirsty. It works stronger than big words because everyone saw it. Memory is fuel. Without it, the story goes dark. With it, it goes on and straightens backs. 12th, the enemy does not sleep. He sees a new belt of land, new garrisons, new roads. He probes the edges, a raid here, a fire there, an ambush on flour wagons. The answer cannot be only a sword, it must be a system, a quick smoke signal, someone who moves at once with a small troop, someone who won't abandon a wagon but drags it out of mud. Someone who knows it's better to lose one chest than the rhythm of supplies. Small fights decide big wars. Win the small. You survive the big. 13th, letters both ways. From there to Europe goes news. It is hard, but it moves. From here return answers. We will come. We will send. We will pass along. Sometimes these promises arrive after months, sometimes years, sometimes never. So you do one thing. Count on people, but plan as if none will come. If they do, it gets easier. If they don't, you endure because you had your own plan. 14th, a generation born here. To them, this isn't an expedition, but home. Children learn 2 languages and 2 calendars. They know when the sun burns and when the sea wind blows. Their fathers look at them and ask, why all this? The answer comes by itself, so they don't have to run. That simple line is stronger than all treaties. In it lies the meaning of our daily work with ladders, buckets, ropes, and letters. If that seems small to someone, he does not understand how the world is built. 15th, reckoning. We write what we have, not to boast but to know where we stand. We finally have fixed garrisons at key points. We have ports where ships can come without fear of sinking, not from storm, but from a foolish watch. We have roads with water. We have people who can serve by schedule, not by mood. We also have wounds that don't heal, old arguments over precedents, promises remembered differently, fear that rises when the foe speaks louder. All of it is true and must be owned, not to sadden, but to avoid self-deception. 16th, the closing image of this hour. See a wall with a guard atop. He is of no great house. His eyes are tired and alert. Under the wall, a wagon of flour rolls past. Behind it, one with barrels. In the yard, a rope is strung with straps drying on it. In a corner, a man with a quill writes things issued and things due. In the forge, glow. In the kitchen, steam. In the hall, someone reads a letter aloud, and someone else dozes on a bench because he rose at dawn. Not great scenes, just life that let those who walked through fire endure. Only now can we say aloud what truly happened. First there was a shout and a promise. Then a road that taught how a shout becomes chaos without order. Then battles that showed you must change tactics and admit yesterday's strength may be weakness today. Then walls that fell not only to rams but to stubbornness and the work of thousands of hands. Then decisions that set everyday life and the people who carried it. At last, a world not ideal but real. Roads, water, guards, and space to breathe. If you want the moral, take a simple one. Great things grow from small motions, counting to 3 under fire, passing a cup, tying a rope so it doesn't slip at night, a contract written in crooked hand that kept thousands in one rhythm. Courage that doesn't shout but does its job. When the next crisis comes, the lesson is the same. A sword is needed, but swords don't build. Hands and heads do, fighting a problem piece by piece until it cracks. Here we close the hour. We leave the First Crusade behind, not as legend but as a chain of events where emotions, faith, hunger, and work twist into a tool. We see how a crowd became an army a society, and a society started to draw borders, roads, and rules. If you want to hold it in one picture, let it be simple. A tower on a hill with a light burning. 2 men walk down. One carries a bucket, the other a letter. The one with the bucket waters the watch. The one with the letter bears word a ship has made port. Because of them, a third can look into the night without fear of being alone. And thus the story goes on. What next? Years of work and years of storms. New expeditions will come with other slogans and other errors. Disputes over who is right. Alliances appearing where yesterday none would have been let in. That is for later episodes. Today we end knowing this hour wasn't about swords or miracles alone. It was about the people who gave this road a spine day after day. Without them, there would have been no first victory, and no victories after. Only then can the story be told in a way that shows not only the shine, but the weight that bore it.